Now, before we go, I'm going to guide you through 7 things that I think are so important for you to remember when you do your writing on Of Mice and Men. The first one, I think you will all remember, it's been done to death, but it's the fact that you must use PQE, preferably PQE. Remember that an idea, no matter how good it is worthless without any evidence from the text to support it. You won't get any marks without quotations, and then in order to get your B's and your A's and your A stars, you need to analyse those quotations. The next important point you need to remember is that one PQE, or a PQEQE, is one paragraph. You don't have to start a new line for each Q unless it's really long. You do, however, need to introduce your Qs with a phrase like "this can be seen when." You can't just plonk a quote in, you need to introduce it. The third important point is that you need to pick out the key words from your quotes and analyse them. It's not just enough in your E's to explain what the quotes mean. Pick out some key words, talk about why those words were used. Fourth point, focus on the question. Don't say things unless it relates to the question being asked, because at the end of the day you're not going to get any marks for it. So in order to show the examiner how focused you are on the question, pick out the key words of the question. In this case it's power and dreams, and make sure those key words are repeated over and over again. Fifth point, use connectives to link your QEs. Words like however, nonetheless, meanwhile, additionally, furthermore. Sixth point, you have to relate your discussion back to the context of the novel, tie in your analysis to what you already know about Steinbeck's themes, why he was writing, what he's saying about the American dream and 1930s America, for instance. And then the seventh point, show an awareness of different interpretations. We're doing that anyway in the essay by firstly considering the positive power of dreams and then the negative power of dreams. But it's always good to bear in mind that you're encouraged to give your own interpretations, your own reactions, and just show an awareness that some people might understand this quote in this way, whilst others might see it in this way. So, a little rhyme that you can use to help remember those 7 points is "Podgy penguins find igloos considerably icy." If you remember that and maybe just write it down on your planning sheet, you can then remember that you need to use PQE, that one PQE is a paragraph. You need to remember that you focus on the question, that you pick out individual words, that you use connectives, and that you consider different interpretations. Likewise, there are a few key words that you might like to memorise to make sure that you use in your essay. Dreams, American dream, Dust Bowl, loneliness, Steinbeck, marginalisation, friendship and Great Depression. And you can have a go at thinking of your own little rhyme, we call them mnemonics, but your own little rhyme to remember those key words. Lots of people have difficulty using quotations. They're not sure where the punctuation goes, so I'm just going to explain that quickly. What I've got there in the middle of the page is a good example of how to use quotations. So, Curly's wife reveals to Lenny a big secret when she says, "Curly ain't a nice guy." Here she finally ... So I've got my P there, I've got my Q, and then I've got the beginning of my E. Now, notice that before the Q, you've got a piece of punctuation. We've either got a comma or a colon. You can choose which one you're going to use. Your speech itself, because it's direct speech, it's what a character says, I've put it here in double speech marks. However, if you're just quoting from something that Steinbeck says, maybe it's the description of the bunkhouse, or maybe it's the description of the mountains, you would just use single quote marks. Notice that the beginning of that quote begins with a capital letter. Even though it's a name here, and that should anyway, even if it wasn't a name, we'd still use a capital letter there. And right at the end of the quote, I need some sort of punctuation before that closing speech marks. So usually it could be a comma if I'm going to carry on my sentence, but I've decided here I'm going to finish my sentence, so I'll plonk a full stop in, and then I'll start a new sentence after the speech marks. Now this is what you would probably mostly use in your essay, but sometimes some people want to embed quotations. You've probably heard of that before. Now this, it looks a little like this. Lenny remarks enthusiastically that they will live off the fat of the land and have rabbits. Now, here we don't need a quote, we don't need a piece of punctuation before the quote, because what we've actually done is we've dug a little hole in our own sentence and plonked the quote in. So we don't need that piece of punctuation after the will. Notice as well what I've done there is actually, if you look at the text, that quotation is really long, but I only wanted the beginning bit of it, live off the fat of the land, and I wanted the end bit of it, and have rabbits. So what I've done is I've deleted the bit in the middle and replaced it with an ellipsis, which is 3 little dots, and that's perfectly fine. That will save you lots of time in the essay, because otherwise you'd be writing out lots of the quote that you don't actually need. So you can remember that technique too. So lastly then, I've listed here some websites to help you in your revision. These are mostly study guides. You've got a few worksheets in there as well, but it will just really help you to read it through, or you could print bits off and highlight key bits that relate to dreams. Remember, you keep it all anyway because you're doing the exam in this, so it's always going to be useful for the future. I've also gone through YouTube and found some videos to help you in your revision. The first 2 are quite good because they're video study guides, so I think it's really worthwhile watching that. Again, watch it with a notepad next to you so you can make notes on anything that relates to dreams. Last of all then, down the bottom, it's another video. It's the one that I showed you right at the very first lesson. It's the video of the context. So if you think you need any reminders as to what the American dream is, what the Great Depression was, etc., I think you should watch that.